Right, so I'm back in my back garden today to talk about creating a wildflower meadow. Now, the reason I think this is really important is because over the last 100 years or so, the UK have lost 97% of its wildflower meadows, which is really, really sad. And we know that insects are in decline, so I think really if we can all do something, we can make a real difference to that. So we can start in our back gardens, I think. Now, if you don't have a big garden, you don't have very much space, you could still consider planting up window boxes or small tubs with plants that attract insects. So for example, you might use lavender, you might use herbs that you can use in the kitchen, so marjoram or thyme. So we can still plant up some small tubs to make a little bit of a difference. But if you're lucky enough to have a bit more space, you might want to consider creating a wildflower meadow or even a small patch of wildflowers. Now, what you might want to do to start with is just to leave it uncut for a few weeks and just see what you have there already. You might actually be surprised to see what comes up. Now, I've done that here in my back garden, and I've got an absolute mass of these lovely yellow flowers which are hawkbit, and in the sunshine they're often covered in hoverflies and all kinds of different insects, so really, really beneficial. Now, I've also got plants like this yarrow here, which is flowering out the front, and we've got some South Hill, this little purple flower in the lawn here, and I've got lots of white clover over there which the bees love. Now, I've got a nice patch down there which I've talked about before, which has got a few other things like lady's bedstraw, bird's foot trefoil, black medic and scabious, and I'd really like to spread those across the garden a little bit more. So where do you start? Well, if you've got a lovely mass of wildflowers already when you leave it unknown, then obviously you don't really need to do very much other than cut it once they've all flowered and set seed, and then remove the cuttings. The idea is that we need low fertility. Now that's the key thing really with creating a wildflower meadow. Low fertility. So if you had any amount of time and resources and you were prepared to do quite a big project, the ideal thing to do would be to remove the turf, as long as you've not got anything particularly interesting in it, of course. Remove the turf and a little bit of the topsoil, and then start from a low nutrient base, and on that you could sow your wildflower seed mix, and then you're off to a really good start. Now, not a lot of people probably are going to want to remove their topsoil and their turf, so there are several other options available to you. You don't just want to scatter seed in amongst all of this, because it really isn't going to stand much of a chance. So what you could do, you need to have a look at which area you want to create a wildflower meadow in, and what you could do is cut out small squares. So cut out squares of the turf, and in those squares you could put plug plants of wildflowers, or you could put some seed of wildflower seed mix in those squares. So then you've just got pockets of it which you hopefully will allow to sort of spread over time. So that's one option. Another option is to cut all of this down at the end of the season, and then to sort of scrape the lawn so that you create bare patches, and in those bare patches you can then sow your wildflower seed in the autumn. So that's the other option really. So you can either start from scratch, remove it all, which you could do on a small scale perhaps. That would be one option, starting from scratch and sowing your wildflower seed. Another option, creating these sort of squares, taking out these turfs and planting with plug plants or seeds, or cutting it all at the end of the season, scarifying it, scraping it, creating bare patches and sowing seed in those bare patches. So those are the options, and then when you've done that in the autumn, you'll need to manage it correctly. So probably in the first year it might need a little more mowing, maybe sort of every 8 weeks or so, and removing the cuttings that you've cut. And then once it's established, you'll just need to adjust your mowing to account for the flowering and seeding time of the vast majority of the species you have. So once they've flowered and set seed, you'll need to cut and remove those cuttings, remembering you're reducing the fertility if you can. And that's what you would be doing each year, just cutting and removing at the end of your flowering season, so not cutting whilst they're flowering. So those are a few different options for creating a wildflower meadow. Maybe starting on a small scale is a good idea. Just have a go, see how you get on. We'd always suggest using native wildflower seed if possible, of local origin. That would be really beneficial for our native insects particularly. And one other thing just to bear in mind, some people are concerned that their neighbours will think it's messy, that they've just neglected it, they've just left it. What you could do is put a little sign up, particularly if you're managing your front lawn in this way, or if you're thinking of managing a public area in this way, a little sign to explain what you're doing and the benefits, and maybe listing some of the species probably will go quite a long way. And the other thing you can do is create some nice meandering paths through the meadow, and then suddenly it looks as if it's managed, and it looks as if it's meant to be like that, and it hasn't just been left and neglected. So those would be the two tips I would give if you're concerned about what people think about it. But really, what is there not to love? And I have to say, last night I was so excited because we came out in the dark and I actually found some glowworms, which I didn't know I had, in some of this longer grass. So wow, that really made me think, my goodness, there are so many benefits to letting your grass grow a little bit longer and encouraging all of these other wildflowers to come in. So good luck and have fun.